Commander He-yun stood at the bridge of her ship, the Star Guardian, looking at the stars through the large window. Her hands were behind her back, and her black uniform was clean and neat. The emergency lights were flashing red, but she remained calm. "Commander, 3 more colonies have gone silent," Captain Jai-ho reported. He handed her a tablet showing the lost colonies in red dots. "The Mirrored Legion is moving faster than we expected." He-yun took the tablet and studied it carefully. In the past month, the mysterious Mirrored Legion had attacked and taken over 3 human colonies. No one knew what they looked like because they always wore shining armor that reflected everything around them. Their leader was a warrior woman who had never shown her face. "How many people did we lose?" He-yun asked, her voice steady but concerned. 2,000 colonists, Commander, but we managed to save most of them before the attacks." Jai-ho's voice was heavy with worry. "Earth Command wants to know our next move." He-yun walked to the main screen, where a message was waiting. It was from the Mirrored Legion's leader. The message was simple, a challenge for single combat. Winner takes all. "They want to fight the old way," He-yun said, touching the screen. "One warrior against another. If we win, they leave our colonies alone. If we lose, we can't trust them." Jai-ho interrupted. "It could be a trap." He-yun shook her head. "The Mirrored Legion follows the ancient combat rules. They have never broken their word." She turned to face her crew. 20 faces looked back at her, waiting for her decision. These people trusted her with their lives. "Commander," a young officer named Du-yun spoke up, "the warrior woman has never lost a fight. The videos we have show that she moves differently, like she can predict every attack." He-yun smiled slightly. That was exactly why she had to accept the challenge. For weeks, she had watched recordings of the warrior woman's fights. Something about the way she moved seemed familiar, like looking in a mirror during combat practice. "Send the message," He-yun ordered. "Tell them I accept the challenge." The bridge went quiet. Jai-ho stepped forward. "Commander He-yun, you don't have to do this alone. We can find another way." "No, Captain." He-yun looked at the stars again. "This is the right way. I can feel it." The computer beeped, showing a new message. The warrior woman had agreed to meet in 3 days on Space Station 7, a neutral location. The rules were simple. Both warriors would fight until one could not continue. The winner's side would claim victory, and the loser's side would retreat. He-yun remembered her first battle, 10 years ago. She had been different from other soldiers, moving in ways that surprised even her teachers. Nobody knew where she came from. She had been found as a child with no memories. The military raised her, and fighting came naturally to her, like remembering something she had always known. "Prepare my combat suit," she ordered, "and set course for Space Station 7. As the Star Guardian changed direction, He-yun touched the small scar on her neck, the only clue to her past. Something about this challenge felt right, like she was finally moving toward answers she had always searched for. "Commander," Jai-ho said softly, "the whole Earth Defense Force will be watching. They're calling this the fight that will decide humanity's future." He-yun nodded. "Then we better give them a good show, Captain." She turned away from the window, her steps firm and confident. "And Jai-ho, thank you for always standing by my side." The Star Guardian's engines hummed louder as it sped toward Space Station 7. In 3 days, He-yun would face the mysterious warrior woman. But deep inside, she felt like she was also racing toward her own hidden truth. The training room on the Star Guardian was quiet except for the sound of He-yun's steady breathing. She moved through her combat forms, each step precise and controlled. Captain Jai-ho watched from the doorway, holding her combat suit. "You should rest, Commander," Jai-ho said, placing the suit on a nearby bench. "The fight is tomorrow." He-yun stopped her practice and wiped her forehead. "I keep having the same dream, Jai-ho, about the day they found me." Jai-ho nodded quietly. He had heard the story many times. 15 years ago, a military patrol had found a young girl wandering alone near an abandoned research station. She had no memories, no records, just a strange scar on her neck and combat skills that seemed impossible for a child. Dr. Min-seo is here to check your suit, Jai-ho said, changing the subject. She has made some improvements. The ship's doctor walked in, carrying her testing equipment. Min-seo was older than both of them, with kind eyes and steady hands. She had been taking care of Ha-yeon since the beginning. "Let me see that scar of yours first," Min-seo said, approaching Ha-yeon with a scanner. "Still giving you headaches?" Ha-yeon sat down, letting the doctor examine her neck. "The headaches are getting stronger, especially when I watch the videos of the warrior woman fighting." Min-seo's scanner beeped softly. "Your brain activity is higher than usual. Maybe you should delay the fight." "We can't delay," Ha-yeon said firmly. 3 colonies are already lost. We must stop them now." As Min-seo worked on the combat suit, Ha-yeon closed her eyes. The memories came back, fragmented but clear. The first time she held a weapon, her body had known exactly what to do. The instructors couldn't explain how a child could move like a trained soldier. Some had been afraid of her, but not Min-seo. The doctor had protected her, helped her build a new life. "Remember your first combat test?" Jai-ho asked, smiling. "You were 14, facing trained soldiers twice your size." Ha-yeon smiled too. "They thought it would be an easy fight, until I started moving. Like you were dancing," Min-seo added, not looking up from her work. "I had never seen anything like it. Still haven't, except in the videos of the warrior woman," Ha-yeon finished. She stood up and walked to the combat suit. "That's why I have to face her. There's a connection. I can feel it." The ship's computer announced their arrival at Space Station 7. Through the window, they could see the massive station floating in space. Several other ships were already there, including the dark, mirror-like vessel of the Mirrored Legion. "The suit is ready," Min-seo said, stepping back. "I've added extra protection around your neck and improved the neural interface." "But Ha-yeon," she paused, looking worried. "Be careful. Your body readings are unusual. Whatever connection you feel to this warrior woman, it's affecting you physically." Ha-yeon touched the combat suit. The material felt cool under her fingers. "Thank you, both of you, for everything." Jai-ho straightened his uniform. "The Earth Defense Force has arrived. They're waiting to escort you to the station." As Ha-yeon prepared to put on her combat suit, she caught her reflection in the metal wall. For a moment, she thought she saw something different in her face, something that didn't belong. She blinked, and it was gone. "Time to find some answers," she said quietly, more to herself than to her friends. Tomorrow, she would face the warrior woman. Tomorrow, maybe the dreams and headaches would finally make sense. Space Station 7's combat arena was a large circular room with high walls. Hundreds of people sat in the viewing areas above, watching silently. The air felt heavy with tension. In the center of the arena, Ha-yeon stood in her white combat suit, waiting. Admiral Ta-young's voice came through the station speakers. "This combat will follow the ancient rules. The fight continues until one warrior cannot continue. The winner's terms will be accepted by all parties." Ha-yeon looked up at the crowd. She saw Jai-ho and Min-seo sitting with the Earth Defense Force officers. They had tried to hide their worry when they helped her prepare, but she had seen it in their eyes. The large doors on the opposite side of the arena opened slowly. The warrior woman entered, wearing armor that looked like liquid metal. Every light in the room reflected off her suit, making it hard to focus on her form. Her helmet had no visible opening, just a smooth, mirror-like surface. "Weapons check," Admiral Ta-young announced. Ha-yeon activated her combat staff. Blue energy flowed through it, humming softly. Across the arena, the warrior woman's staff glowed with the same blue light. The headache that had been bothering Ha-yeon grew stronger. Something about the warrior woman's stance seemed familiar, like watching herself in a training video. The warrior woman tilted her head slightly, as if she felt it too. "Begin combat," the admiral commanded. They moved at exactly the same moment. Their staffs met in the center of the arena with a crack that echoed through the room. He-Yun spun away, and the warrior woman matched her movement perfectly. It was like watching a mirror image. "Impossible," He-Yun whispered. These were moves she had created herself, combinations that no one else should know. The warrior woman attacked again. He-Yun blocked each strike, her body moving on instinct. They fought in perfect sync, each knowing what the other would do before it happened. The crowd watched in silence, understanding they were seeing something extraordinary. "How do you know these moves?" He-Yun asked between strikes. The warrior woman didn't answer, but her attacks became faster, more intense. He-Yun's head was pounding now. With each clash of their staffs, flashes of memory hit her. A white room. Other children who looked like her. A man in a lab coat saying. The program was a success. Their staffs locked together. He-Yun found herself staring at her own reflection in the warrior woman's helmet. For a moment, the reflection seemed to shift, showing a face that was both familiar and strange. The warrior woman pushed hard, breaking their lock. He-Yun stumbled backward. Her opponent raised her staff for a finishing blow, but then stopped suddenly. She touched the side of her helmet, as if she too had a headache. "You feel it too," He-Yun said. It wasn't a question. The warrior woman lowered her staff slightly. When she spoke, her voice was distorted by the helmet, but the words were clear. "The memories. They're coming back for you too." Before He-Yun could respond, the warrior woman attacked again, but now their perfect sync was broken. Both fought with desperation, trying to end the fight quickly. The crowd leaned forward, sensing the change. He-Yun's staff struck the warrior woman's helmet, leaving a small crack. Through it, she caught a glimpse of an eye that looked exactly like her own. The sight made her freeze for just a second. That moment of hesitation nearly cost her everything. The warrior woman's staff came straight at her chest. He-Yun had just enough time to think, "I would have done the same thing," before the impact threw her across the arena. He-Yun hit the arena wall hard. Her combat suit absorbed most of the impact, but the pain still shot through her body. She could hear Jaho shouting from the viewing area, and Min-Seo calling for a medical team. "Stay down," the warrior woman said, her distorted voice almost gentle. "You know how this ends. You would have made the same move." That was exactly what bothered He-Yun. She would have made that move because she had created it. Rolling to her feet, she remembered the day she first developed this fighting style. She had been 16, combining traditional forms with her own instincts. Her instructors had called it unique, impossible to copy. The warrior woman attacked again, but this time He-Yun saw the pattern clearly. It was her own training routine, the one she practiced every morning. Even the small pause between strikes was the same. "Who taught you to fight?" He-Yun asked, blocking a series of strikes. Her head was pounding harder now, and more memories were breaking through. The warrior woman didn't answer, but her attacks became less certain. She too seemed distracted by something. Her perfect mirror-like armor no longer reflected the arena's lights as smoothly as before. He-Yun closed her eyes for a moment, letting her body move on pure instinct. The memories came faster now. The white room from her dreams. Children in identical uniforms. A voice saying, "Only one survived the enhancement process." "That's not true," He-Yun said suddenly, opening her eyes. "Two survived." The warrior woman stopped mid-strike. Her helmet turned slightly, and through the crack, He-Yun saw the same confusion she felt. In the viewing area, Min-Seo stood up suddenly. She was looking at something on her medical scanner, her face pale with shock. Admiral Tae-Young put a hand on her arm, shaking his head slowly. "They're lying to both of us," He-Yun said, lowering her staff slightly, "about who we are." about what we are. The warrior woman's response was to attack with renewed force, but her movements were different now. Less controlled, more desperate. Yun recognized this too. It was how she fought when she was afraid of the truth. Their staffs clashed again and again. Each impact brought new flashes of memory. 2 babies in a lab, a research station evacuation, an accident that separated them. We were never supposed to meet, Yun said, blocking another strike. That's why they're so worried now. Look at them. The warrior woman glanced up at the viewing area. Admiral Taeyang was speaking urgently into his communicator. Other officers were moving quickly through the crowd. They'll try to stop this fight, the warrior woman said, her voice shaking slightly, before we discover everything. Yun nodded. Then we should finish it, show them what we can really do. They moved at the same moment again, but this time it was different. Instead of fighting against each other, they were fighting with each other, creating a display of perfect coordination that made the crowd gasp. Ready? Yun asked, falling into a familiar stance. The warrior woman copied her exactly, like a mirror image. Always. It's what we were made for. Together, they began a sequence of moves that neither had practiced but both somehow knew. The truth was there in every step, every strike, every shared moment of perfect understanding. They weren't just similar fighters. They were something else entirely. The final clash came without warning. Yun and the warrior woman struck at exactly the same moment, their staffs meeting with such force that both weapons shattered. The blue energy disappeared, leaving them standing in the center of the arena, face to face. Admiral Taeyang's voice crackled through the speakers. Stop the combat. This match is. No, both warriors said at the same time. The crowd fell silent at their identical voices. They began fighting hand to hand, moving so fast that the spectators could barely follow. Each punch was blocked, each kick countered. They weren't fighting anymore. They were dancing, testing, learning. The scar on your neck, Yun said between movements. You have one too. The warrior woman's helmet had more cracks now, spreading like a spider's web across its surface. Left side, just below the ear, she replied. I dream about how I got it. Yun saw an opening, the same one she always left in her own defense during this combination. Her strike landed perfectly, sending the warrior woman to her knees. The fight was over. The arena was completely quiet. Even Admiral Taeyang had stopped trying to intervene. Everyone watched as Yun stood over her defeated opponent. By the ancient rules of combat, Yun said clearly, the defeated must show their face to the victor. Dr. Mincio rushed forward from the viewing area, calling out, Yun, wait. But the warrior woman was already reaching for her helmet. The mirror-like surface had lost its shine, covered in cracks from their battle. She paused for a moment, then spoke softly. Are you sure you want to know? Once we see, we can't go back. Yun nodded. I've been looking for answers my whole life. So have you. The warrior woman's hands touched the sides of her helmet. The sound of the seals releasing echoed through the silent arena. Slowly, she lifted it away. Yun found herself looking at her own face. The resemblance was perfect. The same eyes, the same nose, the same small scar below the left ear. The only differences were thin lines of blue light running beneath the warrior woman's skin, pulsing faintly with each heartbeat. My name is Yunwoo, the warrior woman said, her voice no longer distorted by the helmet. And I think we're sisters. In the viewing area, Admiral Taeyang was shouting orders. Security teams were moving toward the arena floor. Dr. Mincio stood frozen, her medical scanner forgotten in her hands. The evacuation 15 years ago. Yunwoo continued quickly. It wasn't an accident. They were separating us, sending one to each side. Yun touched her own face, then reached out to touch her sister's cheek. The blue lines under Yunwoo's skin glowed brighter at her touch. They turned us into weapons, she said softly. But against who? Against everyone, Helme answered. The perfect soldiers, placed on opposite sides. We were supposed to destroy each other. Security teams had reached the arena floor. Captain Jaiho was running toward them, shouting something about a backup plan. But they made a mistake, Heiyun said, helping Helme to her feet. They stood together, mirror images at last united. What mistake? Helme asked, though her smile suggested she already knew the answer. They forgot that mirrors don't just reflect, Heiyun said, as the security teams surrounded them. They show the truth. The security teams led Heiyun and Helme to a large conference room on Space Station 7. Admiral Taeyong sat across from them, his face stern. Dr. Min Seo stood nearby, still holding her medical scanner. Captain Jaiho waited by the door, his hand never far from his weapon. You should have told me the truth, Heiyun said to Min Seo. All these years you knew. Min Seo looked down at her scanner. I was trying to protect you. Both of you. Protect us. Helme's voice was calm, but the blue lines under her skin glowed brighter with her anger. By letting us fight each other. Admiral Taeyong placed a thick file on the table. Project Mirror was started 20 years ago. Earth needed perfect soldiers to defend against alien threats. We created 12 pairs of enhanced twins. What happened to the others? Heiyun asked, though she already suspected the answer. They didn't survive the enhancement process. Min Seo said quietly. Only you two lived. But you were different from what we expected. You were too perfect, too powerful. The project leaders decided you needed to be separated. Helme laughed softly. So you faked an evacuation, sent her to Earth's military. She touched one of the glowing lines on her arm, and sent me to the outer colonies where they finished the enhancements. We didn't send you anywhere, Admiral Taeyong said sharply. The separatist faction stole you during the evacuation. They completed the enhancement process their own way. Heiyun remembered the white room from her dreams. But why make us fight? Why turn us against each other? Because together, you're too dangerous. Jaiho spoke up from the door. Look what happened in the arena. You move as one. Think as one. No army in the galaxy could stand against you both. Min Seo stepped forward, her scanner beeping. Your neural patterns are synchronizing even now. The closer you are, the stronger the connection becomes. That's why the headaches were getting worse, Heiyun realized. We were sensing each other. Helme stood up suddenly. Everyone in the room tensed, but she only walked to the window, looking out at the stars. The Mirrored Legion found me in a crashed escape pod. They saw what I could do, how I could fight. They never knew why. She turned back to Heiyun. But now we both know. You're not prisoners, Admiral Taeyong said carefully. But you must understand that we can't let you leave together. The risk is too great. Heiyun looked at her sister's face, her own face, and saw the same determination she felt. You still don't understand, Admiral. You're not in control anymore. We never were weapons to be aimed, Helme added. We were always meant to be shields. The sisters moved in perfect sync, stepping away from the table. The security teams raised their weapons, but Heiyun and Helme simply smiled. The same smile on two identical faces. The war between Earth and the colonies ends today, Heiyun announced. Because today, the mirrors finally came together, Helme finished. As if to emphasize their words, the blue lines under Helme's skin pulsed once, and Heiyun felt something wake up inside her too. A power that had been sleeping all these years, waiting for this moment of recognition and truth. Major Sunmai arrived at Space Station 7 2 hours after the fight. She walked into the conference room wearing a formal diplomatic uniform, carrying a large data tablet. Her eyes widened when she saw Heiyun and Helme sitting together. So it's true, Sunmai said, placing her tablet on the table. Project Mirror succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. You knew about this too? Heiyun asked. The sense of betrayal was clear in her voice. Sunmai sat down across from the sisters. I was part of the diplomatic team that tried to prevent the project from starting. We knew creating enhanced soldiers would lead to war. Admiral Tai Young, who had been quietly watching from the corner, stepped forward. The project was necessary. Earth needed protection. Earth needed peace. Sunmai corrected him. She turned to the sisters. What they didn't tell you is that there were other projects. The Mirrored Legion wasn't just trying to take colonies. They were looking for evidence of these programs. Yanwu's blue enhancement lines glowed brighter. Is that why you sent me to attack those colonies? To hide the evidence. We didn't know you were looking for project sites, Heiyun realized, turning to Admiral Tai Young. That's why Earth's response was so strong. You were protecting secrets, not people. Sunmi nodded, pulling up documents on her tablet. Both sides created weapons they couldn't control. But you too. She looked at the sisters with something like wonder. You were meant to be more than weapons. What do you mean? Heiyun and Yanwu asked at the same time. The original project leader, Dr. Yuri, she had a different vision. Sunmai explained. She didn't want to create soldiers. She wanted to create peacekeepers, beings who could understand both sides of any conflict because they shared the same heart, the same mind. Dr. Minseo, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward. Yuri was my mentor. When the military took over the project, she tried to stop it. That's why they arranged the evacuation, to separate you before her vision could be realized. But they failed, Yanwu said softly, looking at her sister. Heiyun felt the connection between them growing stronger. She could sense her sister's thoughts, her memories, her understanding of the truth. Where is Dr. Yuri now? Sunmi's face grew serious. She disappeared after the evacuation, but she left something for you both. Something the military and the Mirrored Legion have been searching for. The final enhancement protocol. Admiral Tai Young said, his voice tense. The one that would complete your transformation. Not into weapons, Sunme corrected. Into what you were always meant to be. True peacekeepers, with the power to protect both sides. Heiyun and Yanwu looked at each other, their identical faces showing the same determination. The choice before them was clear. They could remain as they were, separated by politics and fear, or they could become something new, something that might finally bring peace. We need to find Dr. Yuri, Heiyun said. And complete what she started, Yanwu finished. Sunli smiled, but Admiral Tai Young stepped forward, his face dark with worry. If you do this, neither Earth nor the Mirrored Legion will be able to control you. The sisters stood together, mirror images united in purpose. That, they said in perfect unison, is exactly the point. 3 days after their reunion, Heiyun and Yanwu stood on the bridge of the Star Guardian. Major Sunmai had helped them gain temporary command of the ship while they searched for Dr. Yuri. Captain Jiho remained with them, choosing loyalty to Heiyun over his military orders. The enhancement process is changing, Dr. Minseo said, studying her scanner. The blue lines under Yanwu's skin had started appearing on Heiyun too, growing stronger each day. Your neural patterns are completely synchronized now. Heiyun looked at the star map displayed on the main screen. Red dots marked all known Project Mirror research sites. The answer has to be in one of these facilities. Dr. Yuri would have left us a message. The military already searched them all, Jiho said from his station. They found nothing. Yanwu smiled, the blue lines on her face pulsing gently. They weren't looking with the right eyes. She turned to her sister. Remember the white room from our dreams? It wasn't just a room. It was a message, Heiyun finished, understanding immediately. Their shared memories were becoming clearer as their connection grew stronger. The pattern on the walls, it wasn't decoration. It was a map, they said together. Minseo watched in amazement as the sisters moved to the star map. Their movements were perfectly matched as they began marking points in space. Where their enhanced hands touched the screen, new patterns emerge. The research sites form a pattern, Jai-Ho realized. But there's a point missing. Hei-Yun nodded. The final facility. The one they never found because it only exists when you see all the pieces together. Yun-Woo completed. Like looking in a mirror from the right angle. The ship's computer beeped a warning. 3 military vessels had appeared on long-range scanners. At the same time, 2 mirrored Legion ships emerged from the other direction. They're trying to stop us, Jai-Ho said, moving to the weapons station. No, Min-Seo interrupted, looking at her medical readings. The energy signatures, they're not here to fight. They're following the same pattern we are. The enhanced soldiers in those ships, they're all connected. Hei-Yun and Yun-Woo felt it too, a pull toward something greater than themselves. The other enhanced soldiers, the failed experiments that hadn't really failed, they were all awakening. Dr. Yuri didn't just create us, Hei-Yun said softly. She created a network, Yun-Woo added. All the enhanced soldiers, connected across space. Not soldiers, Min-Seo corrected, finally understanding. Peacekeepers, a force that could bridge any divide, because they share the same mind, the same purpose. The sisters looked at each other, their identical faces showing the same revelation. The blue lines under their skin pulsed in unison as they turned to the star map again. Set course for these coordinates, they commanded together, marking a point where all the patterns converge. But that's empty space, Jai-Ho protested. There's nothing there. Hei-Yun smiled. There's everything there, Captain. You just need the right mirror to see it. Yun-Woo finished. As the Star Guardian changed course, the military and mirrored Legion ships followed, not in pursuit, but in harmony. For the first time, the sisters felt complete. They weren't just 2 halves of a whole anymore. They were part of something much larger, a bridge between worlds, exactly as Dr. Yuri had planned. The Star Guardian dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the coordinates Hei-Yun and Yun-Woo had identified. At first, the viewing screen showed only empty space. Then the sisters stepped forward together, their enhanced bodies glowing with blue light. Everyone else sees nothing, Hei-Yun said softly. Because they're looking with ordinary eyes, Yun-Woo added. Together, they reached out and touched the main control panel. Energy flowed from their hands into the ship's systems. The screen flickered, and suddenly everyone on the bridge gasped. A massive space station appeared before them, its surface covered in the same mirror-like material as Yun-Woo's armor. The station had been invisible, reflecting the empty space around it perfectly until the sisters revealed it. Dr. Yuri's final facility, Min-Seo whispered, checking her instruments. It's been here all along. The military and mirrored Legion ships arrived moments later, but instead of attacking, they held position around the station. On each ship, enhanced soldiers felt the same connection the sisters did. Welcome home, my children, a familiar voice came through the station's communication system. Dr. Yuri's image appeared on the screen. She looked older than in their memories, but her kind eyes were the same. You waited for us, the sisters said together. Yuri nodded. I knew you would find each other. Knew you would understand what you were meant to be. She looked at the gathered ships. What you were all meant to be. The station's doors opened, revealing a docking bay large enough for all the ships. As they landed, Hei-Yun and Yun-Woo felt the presence of the other enhanced soldiers growing stronger. The military wanted weapons, Yuri explained as they gathered in the station's main hall. The separatists wanted power, but I saw a different future. A network of peacekeepers, connected across the stars, working together to protect everyone. Admiral Tai-Yun, who had followed in one of the military ships, stepped forward. You deceived us all. No, Hei-Yun corrected him. You deceived yourselves. You saw what you wanted to see. Just like looking in a mirror, Yun-Woo added. Dr. Yuri activated the station's main system. The walls came alive with flowing blue energy, the same as the lines under the enhanced soldier's skin. This is the final enhancement. Not to make you stronger fighters, but to complete your connection, to make you true peacekeepers. He Yun and Yun Wu joined hands, leading the other enhanced soldiers forward. The blue energy flowed through all of them, connecting their minds and hearts as one. The war ends today, the sisters announced together. Not because one side won, but because the boundaries between sides no longer exist. 1 year later, the Peacekeepers Network was officially recognized by both Earth and the colonies. The Mirror Station became their headquarters, visible now to all as a symbol of transparency and unity. He Yun and Yun Wu stood at the station's observation deck, watching ships from all worlds dock peacefully. The blue lines under their skin pulsed softly, connected to their fellow peacekeepers across the galaxy. Dr. Yuri was right, He Yun said, looking at her sister. About what? Yun Wu asked, though she already knew the answer. Sometimes you have to look in a mirror to see the truth, He Yun replied. Not to see an enemy, but to see yourself, Yun Wu finished, and to see the path to peace. Together, they turned to greet a new group of arriving diplomats, their matching faces bearing identical peaceful smiles. They were no longer just reflections of each other, but reflections of what humanity could become when it chose understanding over conflict, unity over division, and peace over power.